Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. The final discussion in Cicero's On the Nature of the Gods, Book 2, where Balbus is presenting the Stoic doctrine, is going to bring the discussion of providence to a close by focusing on what we could call a rather contested doctrine in ancient times, namely the question, okay, if the gods exercise any sort of providential care for human beings, does that extend to individual human beings? And we should say right off the bat that this could be interpreted in two different and distinct ways, which would have a huge impact on the average person, perhaps not on the really important person. So the Stoics are committed to this view that the care and providence, or the taking care, consuli et providere, as verbs of the immortal gods, is not just for, as it's translated here, the human race in its entirety, but, or you could say the universal race of humans, universo generi hominum solum, only, right, alone, but also extends to individuals, and the term there is singulis, right? So individual human beings considered as individuals. And there's going to be an argument given for this. But first, let's pause for a moment and think about how we could understand that claim. So it could be that the gods care for all individual human beings, right? That would be a kind of universal thing. And that does seem to be implied, at least to some degree, by the argument that's going to be provided. But it also could be, in order to make this statement true, that the gods only care about some individual human beings. The people who really matter, not all of us little people. And those are two very, very different doctrines, right? So if you're an Odysseus who's got his own patroness, Athena, obviously she's taking care of you, wonderful for you. But if you're one of the suitors who may or may not have the arrow shafts coming as Odysseus is going to clean house, so to speak, well, maybe you don't have providential care for yourself. That would really make a big difference. If you're a slave, do the gods care for you? If you're an ordinary person, do they care about what you're going through? So that's an open question here that isn't quite resolved. So there's an argument that's being made. If the gods actually care for human beings everywhere on what he calls that sort of vast island which we call the round earth, well, then we can go a little bit more into the parts of it, and they're going to talk about Europe, Asia, and Africa, because that's the world that they know. And they thought that they were roughly similar in size. And so you got these three parts that human beings live in. Great. Well, if the gods care about all the human beings in the world, the universal human race, they also care about those parts. And then we can go to divisions of divisions. And we could think about particular communities. So he brings up, for example, Rome or Sparta or Rhodes. Great, now we're getting a little bit more, as they say these days, granular. That means we're getting to a lower level, a more specific level. And then here's the big jump. Well, if the gods care about Rome, Athens, Sparta, Rhodes, then they also cherish the individuals of those cities, regarded separately from the whole body collectively. And they give some examples. So in the war with Pyrrhus of Epirus, an enemy of Rome, Curius, Fabricus, and Coruncanius, or Catilinus, Duellus, and Metellus, and Lutatus in the First Punic War, Maximus, Marcellus, and Africanus in the Second, and at a later date, Paulus, Gracchus, and Cato, or in our father's time, Scipio and Laelius. So that seems to be suggesting certainly the gods do care for some of these people, but we could say, okay, the war with Pyrrhus, do the gods care about Pyrrhus or just these Romans? So the examples that are being given are a little bit odd. Maybe it's that Balbus thought, well, I'm talking to Romans, let's focus on the Romans. But we could also say, okay, the Punic War, you're fighting against the Carthaginians. Did God care for Hannibal or for any of the other people involved? And that's left kind of open, isn't it? So we can ask ourselves this question: if the gods do care about individual human beings, do they truly care about every single human being? Or just individuals that stand out or matter in some sort of way? And it's not clear, right? So we can say this: it's clear that some individuals, according to this argument, are getting divine aid. It's not clear that everybody is. And the examples that are being brought up are kind of reinforcing this point of the ambiguity. So he says, this is the reason why the poets, especially Homer, attached to their chief heroes, Ulysses, Diomedes, Agamemnon, Achilles, certain gods as the companions of their perils and adventures. Actually, patrons, right? So who does Diomedes have? Well, same as Odysseus, Athena. Athena actually sets up a hit on Aphrodite in the course of the Trojan War. Aphrodite's fighting on the side of the Trojans, and she's got this, sort of veil of invisibility. Athena allows Diomedes to see her, and he actually pursues her and manages to wound her a little bit, right? So clearly the gods are monkeying around with and messing around with the lives of important mortals, but it's not clear that they actually care about the rest of us. There's a few other arguments that are being made. So these seem a little bit weak. He says, we have gods testifying that they care both for communities and for single individuals, but it doesn't tell us all individuals or just some. And the same is proved by portents of future occurrences, right? And various kinds of divination. All of that says that, well, there's some care being given by the gods. And then he actually considers a possible objection, which is, hey, if the gods care for all of us individually, what's going on when there's terrible storms and they destroy this person's crops? Do the gods not care for them? Or if there's some sort of accident, like the ship capsizes, think about poor Zeno, seeing all of his royal purple ebbing away in a shipwreck in the harbor of Athens. Were the gods showing him hatred or neglect? So there's an answer to this, right? And the answer is that the gods care for great matters but ignore small ones, which seems to reinforce the idea that the gods don't actually care about all of us, just the individuals who matter for one reason or another. And then it concludes on a kind of strange note. So he's going to say, great people prosper in their affairs assuming that the teachers of our school, the Stoics, and Socrates have satisfactorily discoursed upon the bounteous abundance of wealth that virtue bestows. So the idea here is, well, if you're virtuous, everything turns out great for you, no matter what, even if you lose everything because of bad storms or accidents or, even perhaps envy of the gods, although the Stoics don't believe in gods being envious. So this is kind of equivocal here. It sounds at first as if the Stoics have this very strong doctrine that the gods care for every single individual human being as a human being. But when you look at the arguments that are being brought forward, it sounds more like they care about the human beings who stand out, who matter more than the rest of us. And this might not be that much of a consolation. There would be providence, but not for everybody.